you see a 10-page application on your desk that previously you never would have because clients couldn't articulate it.
We spoke about, over the last few weeks, we've spoken about the increase in Fair Work claims. I think there was a percentage, maybe 41% increase. From what I understand, the Commission is overflowing with backlog of claims as well. And due to the increase, there's some changes in relation to the lodgement process and the management of those claims. So Daniela, are you okay to take us through some of those changes?
Absolutely. Yeah, the increase is not anecdotal at all. I think, like you said, Paul, I think I read something like 44,000, claims in the last financial year, 70% increase over, I don't recall the period, but what we're seeing is a massive surge in claims, and the Fair Work Commission has had to adapt to that to try and manage them because there's a extremely high workload and a lot of cases that they have to work through. So we're seeing a lot more general protections claims, and we'll talk a little bit later about why we might be seeing those, but a lot more general protections claim. We're seeing a much more compressed and interventionist process. So we used to have about an hour and a half, 2 hours in these conciliations conferences. Now for general protections claim, we get 60 minutes. 60 minutes in the calendar, but practically when you're in these sessions, it could be much less. I had one recently where we got about 15 minutes and the applicant put an offer, we put an offer, and the Deputy President said, too far apart, no utility in there's no prospect of settling today. I'm going to end it, off to court. Here's your certificate. So it's much more compressed because they're seeing so many of them and they're trying to resolve them or get them out of the Commission as quickly as possible. We are also seeing they're doing intake calls with some cases. So we see a case manager calling clients before a conference is even listed. It's a short call and they talk about what the process will be and see whether there's any prospects of settling before the conference. So there's that extra step that's been taken. And then the way the conferences are run has also changed. We're no longer seeing parties get an opportunity to give submissions on the merits of their claim. So previously what would happen is we'd all jump into a call. The applicant would give a little spiel about why they consider that their claim has merit, and then the respondent would respond, and then the parties would get the opportunity to have resolution discussions and put some offers to one another. We've cut out that whole first part. So there's no more submissions on merit. We're straight into resolution. So that's changed completely. And it's why it's so important that our documents, applications and responses say everything that we want them to say, because we don't really get that opportunity beforehand to give some more info. And we're just seeing that in general protections, not in unfair dismissal. And we're also seeing greater scrutiny on representation in the Commission, which has been a significant challenge and something that we've had to navigate with clients. It seems because of a large influx of self-repped litigants, the Commission is, like I said, applying a bit more scrutiny on whether the parties should be represented or the respondent should be represented. So we're having to find different ways to support clients or give greater submissions on why they should be represented. Maybe there's mental health impact. We might get a letter from, a psychologist or a treating practitioner about the impact the proceeding is having and why they need to be represented. Because, like I said, we're dealing with a highly technically complex jurisdiction, and there's significant ramifications for these clients, both employee and employer. You're signing terms of settlement. You want to be able to get real-time advice from your lawyer about what you're agreeing to. So it's certainly different, and we're having to pivot because clients want the support, and we're having to find a different way to give it to them, a different way to attend these conferences for them.
Yeah. And under general protections, is there anything that stands out? Like that's an incredible amount of, at those numbers. Is there anything that stands out in terms of what the claim is that's more higher than others? I think is it the fact of mental health, or is it something like that?
To be honest, I think it's just I don't want to jump ahead too much, but I think it's just driven by a change in the landscape. We're seeing it's highly accessible. There's employees can locate information very quickly online. They're able to identify legal terminology, lodge an application really quickly, and there's really no cost consequences. It's a no-cost jurisdiction, and if you want to get a cost order made against you, it's a high bar. So there's no real downside for employees. I think they're aware of that. And that's why we're seeing more general protections claims. There's AI that's accelerated that accessibility.
Yep.
We used to see claims, it was unfair what my employer did. I don't think that they did the right thing. I think I was treated badly. Now we're seeing claims that are much more clearly articulated. You type into Chat or Claude, this happened to me, I did this, I did that, and all of a sudden Chat or whatever AI platform you're using is able to give you a range of claims that you potentially might make based on your circumstances if you can satisfy all this criteria. But you see a 10-page application on your desk that previously you never would have because clients couldn't articulate it. And I actually just think there's a greater general awareness of rights and people are more confident to make claims and challenge decisions. So I don't necessarily think there's a pattern or of the types of general protections arguments that are being made. It's more a pattern that more general protection claims are being made because of these factors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jenna, I chopped you off before.
No, that's okay. And just quickly, Daniela, there's a bit of a change. Previously, if I was an employee, I'd download the form off the Fair Work Commission website, fill it in, send it, but now it's all online. That's correct. Is that right?
It is online. You can still do it the old way, the old school way, where you download the form and type it all in and email it off, but they've got an online portal now. So you go in, fill out your form, you apply, and then your employer will often get a link and you can access all your documents that way and lodge your form online. We tend to still do it the old school way, actually, but you can, either way is appropriate. And it's a little bit easier to keep track of all the material that have been filed in a matter, particularly for an applicant.
Yeah.
And Jenna, have you got anything to add more with regards to any reason for the rise in activity?
Yeah, I think Daniela hit it on the head. I think employees are more savvier than ever. Generations coming through. We've got workplaces with multi-mixed generations. So employees aren't afraid to challenge the status quo as what they once were, and people want to secure their jobs. They might be there for 10, 20, 30 years. These day and age, if you get a couple of years out of an employee, we would say, well done, type of thing. So there's more transactions. As Daniela said, you've got your AI. Information is so accessible. Social media, podcasts, your chat GPT can write your application. Yes, it might not be all right, but it's probably better than what the individual can do themselves. And so because it is so easy to lodge claims, that's why we're seeing such an increase. Whereas previously, in generations and time past, employees didn't like to push the status quo. So if I think about, say, my parents who were mid-60s, you just suck it up. You suck it up. Whether your boss has done the right or wrong, you suck it up. Whereas now in workplaces, employees are like, no, I have rights. I'm going to execute them. And the information is so accessible from the internet. That's why it's happening. That's the main thing that we're seeing. And we're seeing that from a just people management perspective, claims that are, situations, allegations that are coming through internally aren't what they once were, because people know their rights, or whether they do or don't, they think they do. They're happy to challenge the status quo. They'll have the difficult conversation. And many employers are still managing people like they were 10, 15 years ago. Or you might have someone that might be 30 and the manager might be 55, 60, and massive clash. Not saying either is right or wrong, but that's where the explosion can kind of happen, and that's where things lead potentially to Fair Work. So, employees aren't accepting decisions. They question them, they research, and they'll challenge if they feel like they've got a leg to stand on, which previously we didn't see happen.